This is the J1200 training for InDesign. Now, something you want to keep in mind about InDesign is that you are doing essentially the same skills as you did with Photoshop. And if you know Illustrator, you're doing kind of the same thing. You're dealing with a still image. Where Photoshop is great for those photo changes and the photo updates and manipulating or working with a photorealistic image, InDesign is going to be great for adding in text. That's where its strength is. So it's bringing in images, bringing in text, and dealing with layouts. Illustrator is going to be kind of a mix between those. It's a chance to be a little bit more creative, but we're focusing on InDesign today. So we really want to focus on layout and text. So the first thing you want to do in InDesign is create a new document. Now, there are options for new book or new library, but we're just working with documents because we're dealing with a single image. Now, you do have some presets for print and web and mobile. We're going to go ahead and do a preset for web at 800 by 600 pixels, and that's what you're going to have for your social composition. Over here on the right, you got to give it a name. And then you have the preset pixel width and height, as well as the units of measurement. And then it says it's going to be one page, one column. And then we have these things down here that you could expand to see the margins. So we're going to see that we'll see 36 pixels in a margin on the top, bottom, left, and right. So there's going to be a little grid when we open up the document. We're going to go ahead and create this. And the first thing you're going to see is a white image. And this white image now has our margins at 36 pixels. And we can see that by looking at a ruler up here. So we're right at about 36. And we have that on all four sides. If we take a look at our tool set on the left-hand side, you can move your cursor down and see exactly what each tool set is going to do. So you can have things like text tool and lines and pens, very similar to what we see in Photoshop. And then there's this rectangle frame tool. This one is the one we're going to focus on for today. The rectangle frame tool, when you click on it, it then allows you to click and draw out a frame. Now, you do have the options for holding that down and choosing ellipse frame tool or like polygons and different types of shapes, but we're just going to work with the rectangle frame. And the first thing you probably want to do with this layout is decide, what do you want the final project to look like? Well, I want one large image, and I'm going to say, let's put one large frame here and maybe about halfway. And you see that as you drag that, it's going to like kind of lock in at half. And then the lines will actually change color to tell you, hey, you're within that grid. You're right at about half of your image. So I want one image on the left-hand side, and it's going to give me a box with an X. This frame can now fit any content I want it to. The next thing I might want to do is say, well, I could do an image up in the top right and have it butt right up against it and do maybe half of that page. And so as I click and drag, we'll see that halfway line come in. And then I'll put an additional frame down on the bottom right. This is just kind of a very basic layout. I'm not really doing anything with white space right now except for the margins. So that may be something that we need to adjust. I have 3 frames, so I could put content in each of these frames. And if I want to adjust the frames, you can use the selection tool up on the top right of your tool set. If you click on a frame, then you can drag or rotate those by moving your cursor. You could rotate your frames if you need to, or click and drag them back. Just remember that if you hold the Shift key, that is going to allow you to proportionally scale your frames rather than changing the width and height independently. Now that I have these frames in place, we want to figure out what we can do with them. If you don't have any frame selected, this is going to be a nice little illustration of what the place command is going to do. And if you choose place, then you can choose whatever image you want. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this Columbia, Missourian picture. And now my cursor has turned into the picture. And then I can click that picture into a frame and it fits that picture within that frame. If I hit the Control Z to undo it, then it's back in my cursor and I can move it wherever it needs to go. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the left. And this looks a little weird. It looks very pixelated. I know the picture was high quality, and I also know that it's cutting off a lot of the image. That's okay. The first thing we'll address is the quality of the picture, and this is intentional in InDesign. They're actually giving you a lower quality image so you can work with multiple photos at the same time within a small space, so it's not having to use so much of your computer resources. If you do want to see the full quality image, you can click on View and choose Display Performance and High Quality Display, and that image will be displayed at the higher resolution. The problem with this is, let's say you're designing a page and you bring in 50 high quality images. That's going to be a very large file, and it's going to be really slow in your design process. So you probably want to use your display performance for a typical or a fast display. Now, the fast display is going to be a little different because it actually doesn't show you the image at all. It just says it's gray because there's something here. So if you want to do normal editing, you're going to choose the typical display, and that's where we're going to be.